In this video, I explored the process of transforming an idea, or as in this case an assignment, into what I term personal work. Making a project personal involves recognizing that the subject matter has significance to me, and that I can internalize the idea and work through how to create photographs in a manner that expresses my personal feelings. Over time, I've learned to recognize when the shift has progressed far enough along. There's a sense of integration and even an excitement about creating the photograph that isn't there when I'm taking images solely as a technical exercise. I'll try to break down this integration process a little more using an example. I received an assignment that involved taking portraits in the mining industry, and I could have chosen to approach it as a commercial job. But having spent a lot of time working in the mines, I knew how otherworldly these environments could be, and that this project could be a unique opportunity to explore taking portraits in these extreme circumstances. Another reason that I found the idea personally compelling was that South Africa's social and political landscape has been closely tied to the mining industry that has been responsible for much of the country's wealth. The former apartheid government developed a system of migrant labor to keep these mines running, and over the decades this practice has permanently altered the structure of the society in Southern Africa. These factors were enough to spark my interest and motivate me to explore more fully how I could produce a body of work that could say something beyond mere documentation. The photographs in this series were commissioned by the University of Cape Town to form a permanent exhibition at their newly constructed engineering building. The brief was to take 50 portraits of people working in mines and the related processing plants countrywide. There were a few advantages to having this project tied to a commission. The most obvious was that I would receive payment for my time and that my expenses would be covered. This is no small thing. Almost all of my personal projects have been self-funded. The second win was that I was able to get access and assistance from the mining companies to produce these photographs. The huge organizations that operate these mines are very tightly run, so you can't just arrive on the doorstep and say that you have this great idea about photographing miners. The environment in which these people work is integral to communicating who they are in the world. Their vocation is obviously not all of who they are, but one would be missing an essential component if one didn't incorporate these extreme surroundings into the photographs. I eventually decided to try give roughly equal weight to the subjects and the environment. Previously, whenever I ventured into these locations, I found the experience quite overwhelming. Beyond the physical demands, there's an almost military-type ethos and hierarchy that has been developed to uphold safety and production. Because I experienced these visits as low-level trauma events, I began to view the people that did this kind of work on a daily basis as somewhat heroic. I wanted viewers to appreciate how the subjects had played a hand in transforming these environments and how the brutality had impacted them. The decision to produce environmental portraits added a whole series of practical challenges. Getting to some locations involved traveling over 2 kilometers below ground. I would arrive at the mine shaft early in the morning and join the shift heading down to work. The triple-decked steel cages fit 120 people in at a time, and it takes just a few minutes to descend. After reaching the level station, we still had to walk a few kilometers to reach the drilling area. Accessing electricity was often not an option, and there was the added complication of extreme heat. The rock temperatures can rise to 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius, with humidity levels exceeding 95%. That meant, having reached my destination, I would have to wait for about an hour for my lenses to acclimatize. Without power, I couldn't use lighting, so I would try to find a place where one existing light source dominated and where it was diffused enough to make it soft. The low light demanded long exposures, which meant I had to position the subject and get them to focus on the camera. I didn't want these settings to completely dominate the images, and so I had to find a way of drawing the viewer's eye back to the subject. The need to use long exposures contributed to solving this problem, because the subject's fixed gaze creates an intensity that I think draws our attention to their faces. I also wanted to create a look and feel that would hold all the images in the series into a cohesive whole. One gets a real sense that a photographer has taken ownership of a project when all the images work together. It elevates the body of work into something that is greater than the sum of the individual images. An analogy would be the difference between a greatest hits collection by a band compared with a crafted album that gives a listener a distinctive experience. The one that comes to mind for me is U2's Joshua Tree album. The guitar playing, the lyrics, the singing, and the whole mood is cohesive, and it evokes a particular atmosphere. Another way of instilling a sense of the personal into a body of work is to consider imposing a suggestion of pattern or design. Because the locations and lighting were so chaotic, I felt the need to compose the images holding in mind a structure that would allow the viewer's eye to find form. I'll look at two ways in which I went about this in this project. The first was creating formality through graphic structure. In this example, the frame is made up of objects that form very basic blocks of color against a fairly nondescript background. The photograph is also roughly split into two. The lines in this image are very formal in that they all point towards the man sitting in the loco on the right. All of these graphic elements help the viewer's mind to feel comfortable within this environment, and that allows them then to go on and explore the textured elements and the two men themselves. Because of the stable composition, one almost gets a sense that life 2 kilometers below the surface is unexceptional. The second approach that I would adopt to create form was to draw on painterly layering techniques. One of the strongest influences on my photography has been painting, especially abstract painting. In this shot, the abstract nature of colors and tones is very defined. If you remove the surface symbols, you are left with a monochrome patchwork that forms a base layer pattern onto which the color can be added. So when you impose the colored layer on top of the monochrome background, you find that this unthematic mix of elements is held by the pattern base level. Painter Jean-Michel Basquiat would purposely create a chaotic mix of seemingly unrelated shapes and then draw them together in a cohesive composition, often using a background color or design to hold them. So the overall idea behind this video was to expose the levels of engagement that need to be explored in order to make a body of work truly one's own. One has to interrogate why the idea has meaning to you, what you want to say, and how you intend to convey that message through a look or feel. It is usually something that will evolve as you start photographing, but the sooner you're able to find answers to all these questions, the more likely you'll be able to stamp your personality onto the essay. I hope that you found some insights in this video that could help you along your own photographic path. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.
Is it over yet?
This is good. It really is.
What are they?
Well...
and find out what the future holds in store.
Is it over yet?